Good morning. How are you doing out there? We are talking about Chapter 13, Lesson 2, and what we're talking about today as we kind of move forward is this issue of how are we going to stop the commies. Remember, the commies, we talked about the beginning of the Cold War here the other day, yesterday, and so now we're talking about how are we going to be able to stop the commies from spreading their power and influence. Remember, as we talked about it yesterday, that what we had seen here was communism spread throughout Eastern Europe because the Soviet Union refused to remove its army and it wanted all kinds of things that we discussed yesterday, like a weak Germany and many other things. So the question is going to be, how are we going to stop those commies from spreading any further? And the answer there is going to have to do with what the president learns from his advisor who's spending time in Moscow. That man's name is George Kennan. George Kennan sends a telegram to the president from Moscow, and he tells the president, President Truman if you forgot, just what he thinks about those Soviets. Can we beat the Soviets? President Truman asks George Kennan, and George Kennan comes and he says, President Truman, we can beat the Soviets without going to war. He sends him a message called the Long Telegram, and it's a very long message that goes across the waves. And he says, in order to beat the USSR, we have to contain them. And their country will fall apart on their own over time. That's the idea. Containment, as you can see here, is the policy of preventing the expansion of a hostile power. What we're trying to prevent here is the expansion of the Soviet Union. Imagine, if you will, here on the Soviet Union, a gigantic black wall all the way around the Soviet Union. They can't spread their ideas any further. They've already spread them to Eastern Europe. That's far enough. We don't need them to go any further. Stay inside the Soviet Union so that every time the Soviets try to spread to other places, perhaps Mongolia or China or Iran or other places in Europe, we're able to say, nope, 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 and nope. So containment is going to be a series of policies and ideas that our country uses over 50 years to try, well, more like 40, but still, to try and contain the communists. Keep them in the Soviet Union. That's the plan anyway. Some of the ones we'll talk about right here are going to be called the Truman Doctrine. This concept of being willing to fight the spread of communism wherever it occurs. Let's see what that's going to look like.